So without further ado, welcoming our first guest to the Axios stage, Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course, it's great to be here.
Okay, so we're going to start with actually a political question. Mm-hmm. So it's November 6th, Election Day's happened, Kamala Harris wins. What's the one reason why?
Because she showed the country exactly what government can do for them. I really believe part of the reason why 50% of this country doesn't vote is people fundamentally believe that their vote doesn't count towards anything. Not just doesn't matter in terms of the person being elected, but a lot of people feel like they don't see tangible things come after it. And I think, she has an opportunity, obviously running. She was a part of this amazing agenda and this amazing record with President Biden and played a lead role in that. But she also has the opportunity to distinguish herself outside of that as well. So she's a very interesting role to play over the next 2 months. But I think that's why she wins.
Okay, and Election Day happens and Donald Trump wins. What's the one reason why?
Well, that won't happen. But if it did, I think it'd be because we took this excitement for granted. And that's really been my message to everybody as I've been talking on the breakfasts this morning, as I'm traveling the country and speaking with people, as I'm warning people, do not let this excitement cloud the fact that we still have a lot of work we have to do. Like, we're not going to win this no matter what. We're only going to win if we do the work. And I've seen this before where the excitement's happening, everyone thinks we're inevitable. And that's where you get got. And so I think if we were to lose, it'd be because of that. But I don't see that happening.
Got it. And have you spoken to, obviously right after Joe Biden dropped out, Vice President Harris was working the phones, her team was working the phones. Did they get in contact with you?
Her team did. I haven't spoken with the VP yet, but I've spoken with, Julie and different people from the campaign, folks who work for the VP, and I've gotten to know Governor Walz a lot over the last few weeks. So I was actually speaking with him before he was the pick, and so I feel very confident in the plan going forward.
So you are the youngest member of Congress. You were elected when you were 25, turned 26 a month later, but you're 27 now. Now, I think when people think about the working class, especially in sort of mass media, it's often depicted as, a guy in a hard hat, maybe building houses, or someone working at a fast food restaurant. I'm curious, when talking about younger generation, when you think about working class for Gen Z, what is the image that maybe is missed in sort of that stereotypical description?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing this up. I mean, I think about a lot of my friends, a lot of my best friends, a lot of folks who grew up working class family. Their parents had to pay out of pocket as much as they could for their education, and then they took out student loans for the rest of it, because we've been told that once we graduate high school and we go and we get this 4-year degree, then we'll have a job in our field right after, and everything's happily ever after. And they graduate, and they haven't been able to find that work yet, and they're still working towards it, and maybe some of them work serving somewhere, or they're working at one of the theme parks or anything like that, still kind of chasing this. And I think that's the case for a lot of, I'm Gen Z, but I'm the oldest a Gen Zer can be. And so I think that a lot of young people who have graduated college or not, maybe they went straight into the workforce, that's what I think of. And, I live in a very hospitality rich area. We have, Disney and all the parks and everything. And it's a lot of young people working at these theme parks, working at these hotels, managing things. So that's how it looks like in Orlando and the people right around me.
And are there certain proposals that you think, let's say like Kamala Harris wins, what do you think should be the first big part of her agenda? Because of this rush process, she has not included many policy details, and we certainly don't know policy priorities in terms of there's usually a big first 100 days agenda. Is there a certain thing that you believe should be top of that list?
Well, I think we can get a sense of her priorities by the cadence, right, or what she rolls out first, right? And one of the first things she rolled out was on housing, and I think housing is the top issue for young people right now, especially when I'm out talking with people. We started one of the first congressional offices on a college campus, and so we have an office at UCF, University of Central Florida. It's one of the largest colleges in the country. The top three things that people come to us for in terms of constituent services are, yes, student loan forgiveness and needing help with different programs. Two, people are experiencing food insecurity that are students, so they need help with SNAP benefits. And the first one is housing. Housing. People who are renting right now off-campus student housing, or they're graduating and they just can't either afford to move in someone, or they can afford, but the barrier is so high for being able to rent in the first place that they can't. That's what happened to me, even after I was elected to Congress, because my credit was so bad during my campaign because I wasn't being paid as a candidate. I quit my job to run for Congress. I went into severe debt, and I couldn't move into an apartment here in D.C. because my credit was bad. Even though I had got up the money as I was working Uber to pay my bills, I'd worked up the money to move in, but I didn't even get the opportunity to do it. And so I think the vice president has put forth a good platform on this. Honestly, this has been a little bit of a criticism I've had for my parties. I don't think we have put forth if I say the gun violence agenda, we can think of a laundry list of policies. If I say an agenda on climate change, we can think of policies. But on housing, I feel like we haven't set forth that platform. What does it look like for a Democrat to be a champion on housing? Well, I think the vice president just did that last week and put forth what it means. Building homes, building 3 million new homes, rental homes, but also for home ownership. But also on top of that, ensuring that we crack down on all these horrible predatory practices that are keeping working people, working families, young people from even getting the opportunity to rent. And renting is oftentimes the precursor to owning. And owning a home is the largest asset a working person will have in their lifetime. And so we're stifling their ability to build that generational wealth now. And so I think that it's a top priority for the vice president, and that's really something that speaks to young people, especially the young people who don't care about politics, who don't want to hear from politicians. But when you ask them what they care about, they're going to bring up the economy, and they're going to bring up specifically housing.
You brought up college campuses. So as we saw last spring, there were many protests across college campuses about the Israel-Gaza war, specifically Israel's conduct of that war. It certainly is an energizing issue for young people. We are now heading back into the fall with college kids returning to campus right in the heat of the election season. I'm curious what you saw the reaction from Democrats last spring, and what would be your advice to them going into this fall?
Obviously, there were varying type of responses to it. And for people who don't know, I come from the movement world. I come from organizing. I was a national organizing director at March for Our Lives for 2 years and worked at the ACLU before that. And I've been tear gas, mace, arrested. I went to jail in the district I now represent during the Black Lives Matter uprising for nonviolent protest. And so that's where I come from. And I do think that it is important, and I think a big part of the reason why Democrats have been successful is because we are a big tent party, right? There is room for people, unless you're like a bigot, there's room for people to be a part of our party, a part of our coalition that's working for everyone, no matter who you are. And I think part of that is accepting when people are upset about something, when there's atrocities going on, which I would say that's what's going on, what's been going on, and people want to be vocal about it, you should let them be vocal and figure out ways you can bring people into your coalition through that. Because the thing that worried me about a lot of these protests, and during the protests in Orlando during Black Lives Matter, I wouldn't say it was a buzzkill, but a lot of the things I would tell the other organizers is we have a very important responsibility as the leaders of this movement in Orlando. Because there's going to be so many kids, so many young people who've never done anything political in their life, who came out because they saw a video of George Floyd being lynched in broad daylight. And they don't know anything about politics, but they're there. And they're going to repeat the things we chant, and they're going to listen to the things we say and say, this is what it looks like to be in solidarity with black people in this country. This is what I need to believe in. This is what I need to do. And obviously, with any kind of protest movement, there's going to be bad actors. There's going to be varying opinions, people saying very different things. But when we're absent from those spaces, the void will easily be filled by voices that we might disagree with.
So Vice President Harris confronted some of these protests just a few weeks ago, and her response was essentially, if you want Donald Trump to win, just say that, and I'm speaking. Did you think that was the right tone, given what you just said?
A day later, the same thing happened with protests, and she took a little bit of a different tone. But I get what she's saying too, right? You know,
Were you glad she changed her tone?
I do think that the next time that it came up, I think she had a better approach in dealing with it. But I do want to completely validate her feeling in it because, you know, she's running against someone who's you know, literally said that he's fine with Gaza being flattened, right? He's fine with all these different things. I think Kamala Harris provides an opinion that validates everybody in this situation, all the pain that we see from everybody, the real pain and plight from Palestinians, innocent people that are dying. I have constituents in my district that have lost 30, 40 family members. To the real history and plight of our Jewish brothers, sisters, and siblings, and what Israel represents, more than just a country or more than just a state, but like represents the existence of their people that have been through so much. And having leaders who understand that in their heart and are able to empathize with that, I think it's really important in this moment. And I think Kamala Harris is that person. And I've seen it. I have friends who are part of this movement in a big way from my protest days or from the work I've done. And I've heard from them directly that they feel validated here. And I think, you know, the vice president's in a difficult position, right? She's a sitting vice president to a president. She also, I think, has taken a little bit of a different tone on this situation. And so we'll see how things go. But I think that we're going in a really good direction in bringing people into this coalition. We're all going to disagree on different issues. It doesn't mean we're not all Democrats at the end of the day.
Do you think it'd be helpful to get some of those voters that you're talking about, some of those young people, some of those people that got engaged by the movement, if she distanced herself a little bit from how the Biden administration has been handling the issue so far?
I don't think she needs to distance herself from this. I think the president, obviously it's a very difficult situation, and the president's the one that's been fighting for this ceasefire. But sometimes we lose the plot in social media and everything like that, and it gets difficult to come back from that. And I think that's part of the challenge that the president has had, and not him specifically, but just us in general. And I think what the vice president presents is a new face, a new person who's providing a new way of thinking about this and a new way of handling the coalition. And it gives us an opportunity, almost kind of like a reset, to reach back out to folks, and not just folks on pro-Israel side and Palestinian side, but I think most people in this country agree on this issue. I think oftentimes we hear from like the vocal kind of extremes on both ends, but I think most people are in the same place here, and I think that's the position that Kamala Harris has.
Great. And one last question for you. You're expected to speak on the stage this week. Can you give us a little bit of a preview of what you're going to talk about? If there's one thing you want to say, like people to come away from your speech, what will it be?
Of course, nothing's been announced, but if I were to speak at the DNC, I'd probably speak about the climate crisis and how it's not a distant threat, but it's here. And I'm experiencing it in Florida. My people are experiencing it, and we need to do something about it, and Kamala Harris will do something about it.
Well, Congressman, we are out of time. We went over time, but I don't think anyone here minded because it was a great conversation. So appreciate you coming, and thank you very much. Everyone, we have another event coming right now. We're going to do a quick furniture change, real quick, a little shift. But thank you so much for coming and for listening.
Thanks, everybody.